Hi everyone, welcome to my tiny little booktube channel. I'm going to talk about classic novels today. I'm going to talk about 5 that I think that you should read, and then 3 others that I think it's okay to skip. I originally made a different kind of video. I did 3 that I love and 3 that I hate, and the video just got really dark, so I started over and went with this format. Of the 3 that I'm telling that you can skip, there's only one that I really hate, and I'll tell you which one that is, but the other 2 I think have good qualities, but there's certain reasons why I think you can skip them and maybe read some other things in that same vein or by that same author that are better than the ones that I do recommend to skip. Please like and subscribe, hit the bell icon if you like this content. I put out 3 videos a month, including my monthly book roundup where I do short reviews and ratings of everything I read within a month. This February it's looking to be somewhere between 8 and 10 books, so you can look forward to seeing that in about a week or so. So let's get started. I do want to say that these are not my top 5 favorite classics. These are 5 that I think just appeal to a wide variety of people. This is just my opinion, so if we totally disagree on a book or books, that's okay. I am not an expert. I do not have an English degree. I'm just a guy that likes to read a lot and does love classic novels. Don't take it personally if your favorite book is one of the ones that I say that you can skip at the end. All right, the first book that I think that you should read is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Why? To experience perhaps the English language at its absolute pinnacle. Charlotte Bronte is a master. There are a lot of reasons to love Jane Eyre. It's a brilliant first-person narrative. There are a lot of vivid secondary characters, but for me, what is most remarkable about this book is how well that she writes. She flat out has a command of the English language that eclipses every single author I have ever read. It is almost as if she took, as she probably did, a legitimate amount of time to craft every single sentence, choose every single word, and balance every sentence and paragraph and chapter to its absolute perfection. It is a masterclass in the English language. But it's not just brilliant prose that makes it great. It's still a compelling narrative. It talks about social injustice. It talks about equality for women, and all of these from the point of view of a very compelling first-person narrator. I love Jane Eyre, and I hope that you would love it as well. A Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. Why? To experience a contemporary of Dickens that is just as good. I don't say that lightly. I love Charles Dickens, and Wilkie Collins was actually mentored by Dickens and was his friend. Wilkie wrote about 20 novels in the 1850s to 1890s, sometime in that range. His 2 most famous are A Woman in White and The Moonstone. What I really love about A Woman in White is the narrators. He shifts point of view and has different characters take over the narrative at various points of the book. And it makes it just so interesting, and that single thing makes it as good as anything that Dickens wrote. It really compels the story along quicker, and all of these narrators are very vivid characters with very vivid voices. I think sometimes 19th century works, not just classics, but more obscure works, have trouble reaching a modern audience because of the way that the English language is used differently now. But I think these narrators in A Woman in White bring it alive and make it so much more accessible for a modern reader, which is the reason that I chose a work by Wilkie Collins instead of Charles Dickens for this list. A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Why? To see the genesis of the modern detective novel. A Study in Scarlet is Conan Doyle's first thing that he wrote with Sherlock Holmes. He would write countless short stories and 4 novels, and this was his first novel. And it's so interesting to see the very beginning, Sherlock Holmes through the lens of the narrator, which is Dr. Watson. You know that Conan Doyle had these characters fully fleshed out in his mind before he even put pen to page. I really like this story. It's, of course, a string of deaths that only Holmes could solve. It has a really interesting backstory in America, introduces you to some of the recurring characters like Inspectors Gregston and Lestrade as well, and it's just one of the great Holmes stories that I really love. And seeing that mysteries are today one of the most popular genres, it's very great to go back and see one of the very first mysteries ever written with the best detective ever depicted on page, Sherlock Holmes. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Why? To read perhaps the greatest psychological thriller ever written. What struck me most about reading Dostoevsky in this book is how new it felt. Most of the time when I'm reading something from the 19th century, I'm very aware that it's from the 19th century. Now, I don't know if that's because I had a great translator for this book or if it's just timeless. I'm honestly not sure about that. It's about a man who decides to commit a murder and how he rationalizes that act. It's as fine a psychological thriller that I've ever read and has much deeper themes than many thrillers of today's age. All right, and the last novel that I'm recommending that you should read is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Why? To experience perhaps one of the greatest novels by an American author ever written. Grapes of Wrath is actually not my favorite Steinbeck. I'm saving that for a future video, so like and subscribe so you can be ready for that future video of my top 10 favorite books. But Grapes of Wrath is my second favorite Steinbeck novel, and it's a very close second. It's a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel set in the Great Depression that deals with a family who is leaving the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma and trying to emigrate to California. I tend to be drawn to stories about characters that have to persevere through long odds, and the Joad family has to persevere through just a horrible, horrible situation in this Depression-era novel. I know that Steinbeck isn't for everybody, especially if you're someone who likes a happy ending, because this is a bleak book. The ending is not necessarily unhappy, but it is a little abrupt even for Steinbeck, but it is a novel that I do highly recommend, and it does make you feel for these people that had to go through such dire circumstances. All right, on to the three that you can skip. Now again, this is just my opinion, and of these three, I actually liked two of the three, but there's certain reasons I'll give you for each as to why I think you can skip them. The first is War and Peace by Tolstoy. Why should you skip it? It's incredibly long, and I don't feel is worth the effort. Now listen, I love long books. I regularly read 1,000-plus page novels, and I love Tolstoy. I loved Anna Karenina. That was a novel that I felt transported into Tolstoy's world, and I really enjoyed it. As I did enjoy a lot of War and Peace, but I did not feel that the sum added up to the total. At times it was highly riveting, but at times it was banal drudgery, and I just didn't feel that the effort to read this huge novel was worth the payoff. There are much better Russian novels, there are better Tolstoy novels. So unless you really just want to check that box and say that you read War and Peace, I think it's one that you can skip. If you do decide to read it though, I was reminded by a friend the other day that about 3% of the book is in French, so make sure you get a translation that translates the French as well, because some of them do not. All right, our second skip is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Why? I feel it's the most dull of Hemingway's semi-autobiographical novels. Hemingway had a horrible experience in the war. It fueled his alcoholism, which unfortunately is romanticized oftentimes. But I feel of those semi-autobiographical novels, this is the one that you can definitely skip. It felt like it was just page after page after page of the characters just drinking and doing nothing. If you want a better semi-autobiographical novel by Hemingway, I recommend A Farewell to Arms. I think that book is far superior to The Sun Also Rises. All right, my last skip is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I'll be honest, I hated Wuthering Heights. I hated the characters, I hated the plot, I hated the ending. I mean, what else is there? Setting, okay, setting's good, and Bronte's a good writer. I'll give you those two things, but you will literally hate every character in this book. And I saw someone say that that's kind of the point, but I don't want to read a book where I hate every character. If you do, you may love this book. In my search to try to understand what it is that people love about this book, I came upon a booktuber doing a video, and she talked about how it made her understand the dysfunction in her life so much better. I mean, if having dysfunction in your life is a prerequisite to loving this book, I guess I'm glad that I just don't get it and I don't love it. Read Jane Eyre instead. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section below what you thought of these novels, or if you have any loves or skips of the classic novels that everybody reads. I'd love to hear those as well. I enjoy having the conversations in the comments section below, so please hit like and subscribe and leave me a little note what you thought about this video. Also, you can follow me on Twitter or Goodreads, and I'd love to interact with you there. On Twitter, I do one-sentence book reviews for every book that I plan on reading this year, so please follow me there. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.